Here we go. Welcome into the Sunshine State Showdown, covering all the biggest sports stories in the Sunshine State. Your hosts, bringing you the action. Me, Brandon Kravitz. He over there is Zac Blobner from the iHeart family of networks. We're on in Orlando, Miami, and in Jacksonville. We've got a lot to get to.
Duuuval.
No delay whatsoever in that. Coming up on the show, speaking of Duuuval, how about Ben Murphy from First Coast News in Jacksonville? Michael Lubitz gives us his weekly or bi-weekly tour report, and he's got a number, by the way. But, Zach, I want to start with the story at the top. You ran today. Tell me about it.
Oh, it was fantastic. It wasn't. It was the worst run of the week so far for me, actually.
Wow.
And I'm not going to blame the fact that I had just gotten off the phone with you, but I felt like the bad juju. And it was one of those runs where every...
How did I get roped into this?
Because you were the last person I talked to. From the first step on, every push of my foot from the pavement was forced. Like, I never felt like I was gliding or in a rhythm. Every step, I was like, oh, here's my next step. Here's my next step. Yeah, it was my worst run of the week. And, you were the last one I talked to. So thanks. Thanks, Brandon.
Well, running's the worst. So I'm glad that I had a negative effect. Maybe I can get you to think more clearly and work out like a normal person. Find a pool. Maybe get a treadmill.
Soon. We're getting closer soon.
Like an elliptical. I have an elliptical in my garage. It's so much easier on the knees, man.
No.
That's good. It gives you the resistance. You get the arms going, you know?
No, in no capacity are you going to convince me that the elliptical is the way to go.
A bike? I ride my bicycle around town.
That's a good one. I tried the bike thing last year, and I hated it even more than the running.
How?
For some reason.
How can someone hate moving faster and not stomping on the ground?
Oh, man,
could you like
seat,
that
bro?
more?
I just could not get comfortable on the seat. Like, I just couldn't. And then I had a moment where like a chain broke, and now I'm like, I got to carry my bike. This is like worse than running. There's more
the
variables.
difference is I would rather take my bike into the bike shop than take my knees to an orthopedic surgeon.
Have you been to a bike shop over the last 2 weeks? They're packed. You think they're selling booze?
I haven't been in 2 weeks, but I've been recently. I had to get my bike fixed up so I can start working out again.
How loaded up was that place?
It had some people. It had some bodies. It had some bodies for sure. Let's get to the opening round. Tua Tagovailoa. Man, do we love talking about this guy. He has selected a number with a tweet yesterday that read, for the audience of one, prayer hands. 13 was taken, 12 was taken for retirement reasons. The punter on the team wears number 2. When some people go, oh, he should have worn 2 because he's Tua. This is how good a teammate Tua Tagovailoa is. I legitimately think he chose the number 1 and not the number 2 because somebody was already wearing it. I've heard really good things about him just as a person. And so I don't think that he wanted to strip anybody else away from a number that they currently had. So, what do you think? I've grown to really like it. At first, I was hesitant, but as you know, digging into the history of the number 1 in sports, I've become more confident in his jersey pick.
Punters are people too, right? Like, you got to take that into consideration. As far as the 2 for Tua, that's a little corny to me. I mean, I'm a corny dude in general, so if I think it's bad, it must be. I don't hate it. Look, the 1's a good look, I think, and it has nothing to do with the guys that have preceded him rocking that number. I think that Tua is just so focused on being his own guy and, kind of building his own path, not looking to the Dan Marinos of the Dolphins history, not looking to some of the other draft picks, quarterback-wise, that have been taken in the league in the last decade, especially when it comes to Alabama guys, right? McElroy and some of the other dudes, McCarron. So I respect this, and it just seems like another step for Tua in the direction of creating himself as his own man in the league as a football player and shutting away all the negativity. I think he's a very likable guy. And we talked about this before the draft. You're not just drafting Tua because of what he could do on the field, but because of the personality he can be for you off the field. Sure. And I think this is just showcasing that.
Absolutely. If Justin Herbert picks his number today as the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, it just doesn't feel the same.
Not at all.
And it sounds so silly.
Unless it's 13. Unless it's 13, then we would have been like, what?
No. But this, even though it's silly, it's just a jersey number. I mean, at the end of the day, he's either, if he's great, then the jersey number is one that we remember forever. If he's not, then we forget. Dante Culpepper sucked in Miami. Does anybody remember his jersey number?
5,
exactly. I do, because I had to throw his jersey away. It was 8, I think.
Oh, awful.
Anyway.
Is that the amount of games he played for you guys?
No, you'd have to divide that by 2.
Even worse.
I asked this question on my Twitter account today. Who is the greatest number 1 in pro sports history? And of course, it was the source of debate wasn't so much who was on the poll. It's always who was left off the poll. Twitter only lets you put 4 options. You have to get selective. So I'll give you the names that are on the poll, and then I'll also give you the names of the guys that missed the cut by just square inch. Okay. Cam Newton, he wears the number 1, or at least he did. Tracy McGrady, Ozzie Smith, great shortstop for the Cardinals back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
The Big O, Oscar Robertson. Those are the guys that are on the poll. And then also you got to give a nod to Warren Moon and Penny Hardaway as well.
Yeah. Look, let's start our way working from backwards. If they're not on the poll, regardless of if you think they should be, they're not in consideration. That's not how this works. Beyond that, the next thing you got to do is take, T-Mac, as cool as he was and fun as he was to watch, off the list, because he doesn't stack up in a lot of ways compared to those other guys.
Right.
I would probably take Cam off the list because of the longevity factor. So that leaves you with Ozzie Smith or Oscar Robertson. For me, I go with the Big O, but it's a coin flip. I could go either way. Like, if you're a big Cards fan and you want to argue that he's the guy, he should have been picked, you want to do a backflip like he used to do to kind of convince me, I could be convinced, but I'm going with the Big O. He has more of a striking memory for me.
And that's a cool list. That's a cool list of guys that have donned the number 1 jersey.
It's very unique. Like, it's a variety of, like, there's a variety there. Like, it's like if you get like a pack of candy and you're like, whoa, there's yellow and blue and purple. Like, but they're all good. They're all tasty. Except for, like I said, maybe the Tracy McGrady one. Like, not that he wasn't fun, and like there obviously is a crowd out there that probably would hate me for saying that.
Yeah, there is.
He doesn't stack up compared to Oscar Robertson.
No, of course not.
And Ozzie Smith, and even Cam Newton. Cam Newton won an MVP. He went to a Super Bowl. So, I mean, the fact that you put Tracy on over Penny, I mean, but whatever. Nonetheless, the debate is between the Big O and Ozzie Smith.
Yeah, Oscar Robertson winning with 36.8% of the vote. Ozzie Smith is in second place. Cam Newton, a wildly distant 4th place. Ooh. And there is a Magic contingent out there that wanted to throw Tracy McGrady some love. Isn't it interesting, though, that the number 1 is so unique? It's the number 1. You would think that in college it's not. In college, I mean, that's a huge deal. That number is a big deal at the University of Florida. And so we've seen that number worn by some big time players in college football, but in pro sports, it's strange to me that the number 1 feels so unique. But you're right.
Part of that is because I think, well, at least in the NFL, I guess really for a lot of these, you all had so many restrictions with numbers for a long time based on your position, right? If you were picking numbers and you were a rookie, you didn't really get to pick from as many. So there's been some like hurdles. If you wanted the number 1 in the past, you could argue. But I think when you get to the professional level, so much more of it is like, and again, especially when you're entering, is about, okay, this is your team. How can you be a part of the team? And I think it can be viewed, picking number 1, as a cocky move. Now, we think Tua did it for the opposite reason. We think it's a humbling gesture on his part for multiple reasons. But with that being said, I think, for the most part, if you're a rookie quarterback and you're like, I want number 1, I'm number 1, I want number 1. I could rub some guys the wrong way. And, maybe a few of those first sacks you take, the guy twisting your ankle at the bottom. You're just not trying to put an extra target on your back. And I think the 1 does that in a lot of cases, not this one.
Well, and, I think that with Tua, he just, I completely forgot what point I was going to make, because I just pulled up this great story. So like he exemplifies, I think, he's probably been called, is what I was going to say, at some point in his life, he's been labeled the chosen one. And so I'm thinking that has something to do with it. But the reason why I say it was probably a humble gesture is this story comes out of the Palm Beach Post. He said that in pulling from an article here, we're told that Tua has reached out by text message to multiple Dolphin teammates, including wide receivers, essentially introducing himself and conveying that he's looking forward to working with them. And when ESPN's Reese Davis was asked about this, he said that this does not surprise him at all, that he found out about Tua, that he went to various departments while at college, the business department, administration, and compliance. And before he left, he thanked all of them for the work that he did. Quote from Reese Davis, he's just a different guy. So that's the teammate that the Dolphins brought in. That's why I believe that there's a chance he had the opportunity to take a different number and said, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers, even if it is for a silly punter.
Now, with all that said, and let me tell you what Tua reminds me of as far as entering the league. Certainly don't know his path or how things will pan out compared to the guy I'm about to bring up. But as far as the intangibles, the type of guy he is, the background, the college success, he reminds me a lot of Marcus Mariota when he got picked up by Tennessee. And Mariota is a guy who you could argue is a bust. He led the team in Tennessee to playoff wins. You know, he wasn't what he was supposed to be. He was definitely injury ridden. So there were some aspects that, you know, Titans fans weren't thrilled with. But at the end of the day, as he moves on to Las Vegas to back up Derek Carr in John Gruden's quarterback room, everybody in Nashville still loves Marcus. They still talk about Mariota as a great guy. He did everything you could. It just didn't work out, right? And they're happy with Tannehill, and that project did work out, obviously, so they went with him. But as far as when Mariota got into the league and the way that I could see him perceived in Miami, it feels a lot like Mariota when he got to the Titans.
Yeah, but and so let's say that Tua went along the same path. Now that would be incredibly disappointing, just like Titans fans and the organization.
Injuries, though? Injuries were a part.
That was absolutely, and it could be a part of it too. But wouldn't you agree that at least a portion of where the Titans are right now, and the Titans are in a good place, they were in the AFC title game last year, is because of the winning culture that Mariota helped bring to the table, the system that they built around him, and the fact that when Tannehill came in, because Mariota is such a good teammate, he took to Tannehill rather than being resistant, and it probably helped Tannehill and propelled him to give the Titans the season that he did. Certainly that's not why you draft a guy 5th overall in somebody that you think is going to save the franchise. But the point is that just bringing good people into your locker room, sometimes that alone can be a positive for the future of your organization.
It definitely doesn't hurt. You know, on the same hand, sometimes guys need a kick in the butt, and you want more of a gamer to step in and be more like a Baker Mayfield. But in the case of, you know, what Marcus Mariota did in Tennessee, I think the biggest benefit for Ryan Tannehill for Marcus Mariota is that they learned, well, we don't want our next future or franchise quarterback to get hurt. We should run the ball a lot more. And Tannehill threw in some games, and he was very accurate, and he won that job fair and square. But I think that they've learned that they got to lean on the running game more, and that's really what hurt Mariota, because Mariota had Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray. He had a run game. He had guys there. They just didn't maybe lean on it enough. But yes, I do think that Tannehill's reaping some of the rewards that Mariota set up. And to give you a comparison with relationships, I know I heard the bell, but just think about like this. And you've probably been on one side of the fence, if not both, where there's a relationship with two people. One of the people is just not the type of person that's ready for a relationship, but by being in a bad relationship with a good person, whether it be a good guy, good girl, they grow into the type of boyfriend or girlfriend they should be for their next significant other. And then that person reaps the rewards, right?
The groomer. That's the groomer.
The groomer. Yeah. The groomer. Now, hopefully that's not the case for Tua. And for Tua, he's able to be a franchise quarterback. But I think at worst, he's a Marcus Mariota, and that's a good sign for Miami if that's the bottom of the basement for him.
Very well said. And that is the end of the first round, as Chris, our head referee, has called it. One final thought as a little nugget that I just had to share with you guys. According to Reddit, 70% of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks wore double-digit numbers, for what that's worth. And there are only 3 numbers that are issued to quarterbacks that have not yet won a Super Bowl: 1, 2, and 6. So chew on that during the commercial break. We're back with Ben Murphy next.
All right, Chris, I'm going to feed the dogs.
That's us. He's running rain or shine. My knees hurt just thinking about running, but we make a great team nonetheless. Welcome back to the Sunshine State Showdown. Let's go to the hotline. We've got Ben Murphy standing by, First Coast News sports reporter. You can find him on Twitter at Ben Murphy TV. Ben, I want to ask you about the UFC. They're performing, or they've got a fight at least this weekend.
Performing? What is this, wrestling?
Yeah, I know.
What's going on?
I have to take my wrestling fan hat off for a second. So how did this come together to where the UFC has an event this weekend? There aren't going to be any fans, but it is taking place in Jacksonville. How did Jacksonville become the host for the relaunch of UFC?
Well, the Khan family's big into the wrestling industry.
See,
some
wrestling,
people may know. Yeah, they're into that kind of entertainment. Dana White's been trying to come back to Jacksonville. It just kind of it worked out. I know I think they had looked at Tampa and Orlando, but I think the timing was right for Jacksonville. An easier spot than maybe some of these bigger cities to get their, if you would call them their performers, into
it felt like a shot.
City, yeah, it might have been into Jacksonville, and timing just worked out. So good for Jacksonville, good for the First Coast. I think it's since the mid 90s, 95, 96, that they've had some sort of mixed martial arts event in this town. So if you ask me about the details of the event going on, I couldn't delve into those as much as you want, but
yeah, I'm going to ask you details. I called them performers, Ben. I don't think you're getting details out of me. All right, this barbaric buffoonery going on in Jacksonville.
We were actually planning on going deep diving into the jumbo shrimp instead. That was the route we were going to go.
Baseball's never been more tartar than the Jacksonville Shrimp.
Very nice. Oh, I love it. All right, let's pivot to the Jags. Let's get some football talk on the table and eat. I want to ask you about Gardner Minshew, because I was thinking about this earlier today. Not that we don't talk about him, and we've certainly pointed out, he can do some nice things. Who knows? I don't know if we're giving him enough credit, though, or enough of an opportunity to prove to us, all of us, that he could be a starting quarterback. What kind of ceiling does Gardner have? And, is he being treated kind of unfairly as we look at the Jags to tank in 2020?
I don't know if he's necessarily being treated unfairly. I just think that the consensus is that around him, there may not be enough right now for them to get the job done, no matter how successful he can be. Look, he did a very good job of protecting the football, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's mobile within the pocket. The offensive line has been banged up over the last couple of years. His feet allowed him to create some plays. I think, again, we talked about this before. He's a guy that is not going to overwhelm you with his arm strength. He's going to use his feet to make some plays happen. He's going to be exciting. He's going to find guys in different pockets. Like I said, I think I've said on here before, the ceiling could be somewhere around Tony Romo in that kind of style of play. Similar bodies, similar arm strength, and I think that would kind of be the limit. I don't think the people are maybe not giving Gardner enough credit, but I think it's kind of evident right now with this Jacksonville team that right now the talent around Gardner is very young, and the defense was beat up. There were a lot of games where it was out of Gardner's hands last year, no matter how well he played. It was a tall task for him to win some of the games that he was put in position to at least attempt to.
We're talking to Ben Murphy, First Coast News sports reporter. The schedule release comes out tomorrow night. First of all, I know you're pumped. And second of all, do you expect the Jags to end up in any primetime games? If I gave you the over-under of half, would you take the over or the under any primetime? Thursday, Monday, Sunday? They're not ending up on Sunday. We know that.
If you're going to give me a half, I'll take the over. They'll probably weasel their way into a Thursday night game again. I think last time it was going to be a primetime game was, you have to go back to 2018 when they were going to play the Steelers on a Sunday night, and then NBC flexed Jacksonville out of that. But this obviously was following the AFC title game run the following year, where they were the next year slated to actually be in a good position within the AFC right after they paid Bortles and things were looking up. There was a primetime game against Pittsburgh, and then a few weeks after they beat the Patriots and on that glorious Sunday afternoon, a 4:25 game in Jacksonville a couple weeks into the season, things went south and the Jags were flexed out of primetime. So if I had to bet in 2020, give me the over on a half, maybe a Thursday night special. I know we've seen that with Tennessee the last couple of years. That hasn't ended well in either scenario. Actually, no, I think the Jags won this past Thursday night game this year at home against Tennessee, but the previous year, Thursday night, Tennessee and Derrick Henry had a 250-yard plus explosion in Nashville in 2018. So, hey, 3 years in a row, maybe Jags, Titans, a little Thursday night action.
There you go. Get excited, folks.
It's like clockwork. I feel like that we get that every year. Yeah. No London games though. We know that.
And some Thursday night games. But
Amazon's busy, man. They're doing all kinds of stuff right now. I wouldn't be surprised.
Busy.
What about those London games, man? We're not seeing those on the schedule. Is that, how's the fan base reacting to that around town for next season?
Yeah, it's like one of those. Well, welcome back home, shall we? There was frustration that poured over. Obviously, a couple months ago when they announced there would be a second game in London, because look, you get 8 home games. So you're telling me 2 of the games we get at home are going to be played in London? Well, quick math, that's 1 out of 4. That's 25%. You kidding me? There was, and I mean, it was an overwhelming amount of frustration, and the frustration's still there, knowing that even they are going to get those 8. It's bittersweet because you get the 8 home games. And let's say fans, by the time we get to football season, do get to go to the games. It's still a little bit of that. And I was talking to fans today. It's like, yeah, well, we're happy, but it's not the reason we wanted to be happy. It's almost like it was handed back to us in a way we didn't want it to be. The fans are looking for this ownership to be all in and not 1 foot here, 1 foot out. Because you would ask me 5-10 years ago, are the Jags going to go to London? Nah, that's more of the national consensus. I don't really think on the grounds here in Jacksonville that's what we would assume would happen. But if they got the green light to move an NFL team to London, you can bet there would be talks that the ownership here would be highly considering of it. They're using those games in London to almost fundraise for a project they have around the stadium to help events and hotels and every other thing around the stadium, but they haven't started constructing any of those projects. So until there's a shovel in the ground around the stadium here in Jacksonville, fans are going to be a little worrisome about the ownership's commitment to this city. And even if they're bringing those 2 games back because of a pandemic, it really wasn't the choice of the ownership group. It was the choice of the NFL. So the fans are still a little worried about really what's going on. And even though they do get those 2 extra games, which will be nice, they still want to see that full commitment come 2021 when they'll have to make the decision on how many games will be played in London and how many will be played in Jacksonville.
Ben, let's end on this. I saw a comment from GM Dave Caldwell where he said that in talking about Leonard Fournette and possibly dealing him, he said that there were just some minor discussions, but nothing substantial throughout the draft process and prior to the draft. He's in great shape. He's got a great mental frame of mind. We feel like he's going to have a great season this year. Is that Dave Caldwell taking Leonard Fournette off the block?
No, I've always been the kind of in the kind of mindset that everything's always for sale. But depending on the right price, I don't think he is going to end up getting traded. I think that window passed. I think that we're going to try to get something out of this year's draft. It would have to be. I mean, I think they'd have to somehow weasel a 3rd or 4th in next year's draft to give him up, which I don't think is going to happen. I think you're going to see Fournette play this year, and I wouldn't completely take it off the table that they were to re-sign him if they can get him for a price less than $10 million in the following year. But I think most would say he'll end up playing this year, and this could be his last in Jacksonville.
That is what it feels like. Ben Murphy, First Coast News sports reporter in Jacksonville, at Ben Murphy TV on Twitter. We couldn't hook up yesterday, but I'm glad we got to today. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Yeah,
thanks, Ben.
Glad we got to it, boys. I'll talk to you next week.
Around the corner, we've got the legend, Michael Lubitz. What does he think of Tua landing the number 1 jersey? That's next. Let's go. Let's chat with Michael Lubitz on air. 940 WINZ Miami Sports. Luby, Tua chooses the number one. You like it? You love it? You hate it? Give us your hot takes on Tua and the number one.
I think it's interesting. It's not usual for a quarterback to take the number one, but we have seen Cam Newton with that number, and he won an MVP and went to a Super Bowl. So I like it a lot better than 13 for him, considering it wasn't going to happen. So I'm glad he made his choice. I look forward to seeing him with that number one, leading the Dolphins back to greatness.
Yeah, that's how it'll play out for sure. No, you know, and it's funny because me and Brandon were kind of discussing how this is a choice that really shouldn't matter. And really, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. But the way that he went about picking his number, the way that he put it out there after the fact, it feels like he's handling his business off the field just the way we expected him to. He's handling it well so far, and it feels like the fan base is embracing him. So far, I would say, Luby, the plan is on track, 100% as scheduled.
I think it's cool. It's funny because we talked about it this morning, and when you guys brought it up to me last week, I thought it was ridiculous. Like, I don't really even care about talking about numbers, let alone unretiring numbers. Like, that's not the thing you do in the pros. In college, they'll do it, but in college, they'll let kids wear numbers of past greats. And in the pros, outside of like Cowboys with 88, usually greats have the number retired within a few years of being retired, and no one wears it again. So I just thought that was strange. But I will say, down here, we haven't cared about anything like this when it came to the Dolphins for a long time. So the fact that it actually became something that really, like you said, isn't important, became such a big debate, I think is intriguing. I think it says a lot about what the excitement to us already brought. And there's an organization that hasn't had a face since Dan Marino. I mean, they've had great players, and Ndamukong Suh and Rashad Jones made Pro Bowls, and Cam Wake made Pro Bowls and All Pros, and they were good players, but no one was a face of the franchise. The kid hasn't even stepped on the field yet, and people are already debating what number he'll wear. To me, it sends a message that fans are ready to support the Dolphins, and this kid might be the guy to bring him back.
And the irony of that is the pandemic that we all live in and through right now, and the fact that the Dolphins were the first NFL team to unveil plans for what their stadium capacity would look like. So for the first time in forever, the Dolphins have a guy that's going to bring people to the stadium as long as he's playing, and yet that stadium is going to be at about 23-ish% capacity. What do you think of the plans that were unveiled where they'll allow, say, 15,000 people in? They'll have markers and designated entrance zones and all of that. It's very thorough. It's well thought out. What did you think of it, and do you think it could work?
What I think it means is there's way too much money in professional sports or any sport outside. I mean, even high school there's money, but once it gets to college and college football, college basketball, and professional sports in America to miss entire seasons. And I think they're going to do, the NFL especially, they've been full steam ahead, man. They had their free agency. They didn't skip a beat. They had their draft. Their commissioner sitting in his room telling fans to boo him. Like, they haven't skipped a beat, and I don't think they're going to. Will it work? Yeah, they're going to make it. I think they're pretty clear in the fact that they're not going to lose out in hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, they have 4 or 5 different television contracts. They have vendors. They have apparel. Like, there's so much money in it that they're going to do whatever the heck they have to do to make it work. Is it going to be uncomfortable? I think so. Is it going to be impractical? Probably. Is it going to be safe? I really don't know. But again, there's so much money in sports. It is as big business as we have. I mean, Disney's biggest entity is ESPN. I mean, so, and that tells you what Disney has around the world. It's pretty clear that, especially the NFL, is going to make it happen. And again, like we've talked about, I don't know how safe it is, but as a person who does sports for a living, I'm sort of grateful because I would love to see some action on the field.
And again, very different, Luby, but like so far, you mentioned they're full steam ahead. Everything's been working out okay. I mean, from the virtual draft, obviously they're doing these virtual classrooms where guys are learning in the off season, not quite OTAs, right? Not quite exactly what it would have been had the pandemic not have happened. But the NFL, you know, they keep going to the next thing without any issues. And I think that's why they feel so confident moving forward. But yeah, you're right. The money definitely has just a little bit to do with it as well, my friend. I want to get back to the on-the-field product here. And you brought up, you know, it's funny, I thought of this. I didn't have this question written down, but you mentioned Cam Wake, obviously quote unquote one of the faces of the franchise there for a good minute. We know about Jason Taylor prior, and this team that's always had such defensive studs. And I might have even asked you this before, but refresh my memory. Outside of Brian Flores and anybody on the coaching staff, who is the face of the defense right now? And we know they have really good corners, but who would you say is the face or the leader of the defense right now?
No, I mean, you said it. You would hope for what they're paying it's Xavier Howard. Like, I mean, it's that simple. The guy is a Pro Bowl caliber corner, has a talent to be an All-Pro, and they're paying him, I guess he is the number one corner paid in football. So you're hoping it's him. The problem with him is he can't stay on the field. And that's sort of been an issue. You said Cam Wake. He couldn't stay on the field. He got hurt a lot. James Taylor, and I didn't forget him, he is a Hall of Famer. But again, he still really wasn't a face. That shows just what Tua's brought excitement-wise. But yeah, they've retooled that defense. They've gotten rid of a lot of guys, and they're going younger, and they're retooling. I'm hoping it's Christian Wilkins. He didn't have the kind of year people wanted as a top 15 pick, but he wasn't a bust either. I caution people because remember, he's an interior defensive tackle. Like, it is, unless you're Warren Sapp, it's really hard to see. And in Ndamukong Suh in his early days with the Lions, it's hard to see an interior lineman stats jump off the page. But he was underwhelming, and I'm hoping he can step his game up. But look, it's going to be the cornerbacks. I mean, that Tandem Jones and Howard are going to be the two people that this defense is relying on because they're paying them inside top 10, top 15 defensive player money in the league.
Yeah, I'm thinking Byron Jones is going to be the face of that defense by the middle of the season. I don't think it'll take very long. With all the money they're spending on those two guys, it really does have to be Jones or Howard. Otherwise, they're not getting their money's worth.
I don't think just because you're the highest paid guy, it means you have to be the most vocal or the leader of the defense. I mean,
but you said there's a difference between being the vocal leader and being the face of the defense. Because I think face is perception. We don't know what goes on in the inside of the huddle defensively or at practice. Oftentimes we don't hear about that stuff until after a guy retires. Somebody goes, oh, that guy was the vocal leader. Like, who? What? Really?
Yeah.
Michael Lubitz is joining us on air, 940 WINZ Miami Sports. After the passing of Don Shula, I know that you guys covered that extensively. We had Jeff DeForest on who knew Don Shula really well. I know that you looked up to him, as many did in South Florida. How great has it been to hear the level of reverence and appreciation for him again, the level that he deserves, and that has been the conversation this week about Don Shula?
I mean, it's sort of sad that he had to pass for this to happen, but I mean, look, he lived 90 amazing years. He was a great family man, great on the field. And what's been cool about it is we've been pretty much doing the last couple of days every day, and it'll continue tomorrow and Friday, have been our goodbye to Don Shula. He was a guy that set the standard for South Florida sports. South Florida sports really didn't exist before Don Shula. And whatever's come since, and we've had 2 championships with the Miami, prior Florida Marlins. You've had 3 championships and 5 finals appearances with the Miami Heat, and Pat Riley and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. All are, you talk about faces, are faces on the pantheon of South Florida sports. The face is the man that started it all was Don Shula. And it's been great to reminisce about his greatness and what made him. What's cool is, and you talk about some of the great coaches of all time, he never had any scandal. Like, his players were always, we've had a lot of issues since Don Shula, but his entire time, and he came in 1970, 71, and was here all the way until 1995, no issues on the field. He missed the playoffs in his 33-year coaching career, including the Colts, twice. Okay. Or had losing seasons twice. As a Dolphins coach, I think he had 1 losing season. Like, the excellence he had on the field was almost next to none. And what was great about it is off the field, no issues, no scandals. You talk about Belichick, they've had a lot of scandals. Parcells had his issues with the media. Don Shula had no issues. Everyone to a man will consider him greatness. His players, again, great coaches have had issues with their players. All of his players to this day, beloved. So it's been really cool because I grew up idolizing him. My parents loved him, but hearing some of the stories of former players, former media people, and it's been really great to remember a man that set really a standard that I don't know if anyone else could reach down here in South Florida.
It's funny you mentioned that because he even held Brian Cox in check to a point, which was nearly impossible to do in the 90s. That's how impressive he was as a leader.
Yes, and it's something we've been looking for since. I mean, Defo talked about it today, and we talked about it. it's not only is impressive what he did on the field and off the field, but to see what the organization has become since. And I am openly a Dolphin fan, and I root them on, and I look forward to them being great because it helps us on the air, but it's also, you know, something you got used to down here. And it was just, that's how good he was. They called for his head, and he eventually got replaced by Jimmy Johnson because he had set such a great standard that it was Super Bowl or bust. Like, the Dolphins would be in the playoffs every year, but it was like, oh, well, no Super Bowl. It's like, look what we've done since, you know, like they haven't had a Super Bowl. They haven't had a playoff victory in, I think, like 2 decades, something like that. So what he did is even more impressive to see, considering what's been since his time, since he left.
Michael Lubitz, you can hear him on air, 940 WINZ, Miami Sports, 6 to 10 a.m. with Jeff DeForest. We appreciate it, man. Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you Friday.
Yeah. You know, that's interesting when you think about what the Dolphins did in 95. To push Don Shula out the door seems unsavory for how successful he was with that franchise. But you heard Luby mention it, Zach. They went from Don Shula, who did have a rough stretch. He was losing in the first round. He had Dan Marino. You know, like, I get it. Looking back, it looks foolish because the Dolphins have been a mess ever since. They never achieved the success they had with Shula. But I get it at the time. And they move on from Shula to Jimmy Johnson. Have we ever seen in any sport a team go from one legend in the Mount Rushmore at their in their sport to another guy on the Mount Rushmore? I don't think we've ever seen that before.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure the Steelers went from Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher, but even that's not exactly the same.
I can't think of anything that's as good
Tony
as that.
Dungy to John Gruden in Tampa. I mean, there's a lot of
The best
similar.
It's the best
back to back. Nearly.
Yeah, I think it's the best back-to-back coaching hires in the history of sports. It has to be, just from name
it's certainly
value.
up there. What about Belichick to Belichick?
I see the Browns went
20
from
years.
I'm trying to think of what else.
Did the Ravens have anybody between Billick and Harbaugh? Because I mean, you know, 2 Super Bowl winners there too. Yeah. I mean, there's some options.
I said
there,
Rushmore.
You know?
I'm raising the standard here.
It's true. That's why I was like, I can point out winners that went from winners to winners.
Yeah,
but
no, of course.
Hard to do. Very hard to do.
Bobby Bowden to Jimbo Fisher maybe is that's not bad.
Jimbo's not a Mount Rushmore guy. Come on.
I was trying to get at least close. I couldn't even get close. All right, around the corner, we've got Coast to Coast for you next. Who's number one? We're number one. And Tua, he's number one too. Welcome back to the show, presented by KeepFloridaGoing.com. Find out which businesses in the state are opening back up, where you can get takeout, get your car serviced, and all of that. KeepFloridaGoing.com. Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville. Don't forget, if you miss our show live, you can find the podcast available daily on the iHeartRadio app, just simply by searching Sunshine State Showdown. Let's close the show out in style, shall we? Let's kick it back to the master of master control, Chris Vasquez. What's up?
You are too kind. We'll start off in the NBA here. Jimmy Butler said in March that he's offended when an opposing team has a white guy guard him, and doubled down on those comments over the weekend. Zach, is Butler being offensive here?
It is. I'm sure he said it in jest. I'm sure he was just kidding around. Plus, he's never had me guard him. You know what I'm saying?
That's racist.
You guys like that?
That's terrible.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, that's offensive.
He's
Jeez,
joking.
are we over that? Oh, he's joking. Okay, let me try to say that. Let's see how that goes over.
Yeah.
Like a fart in church. That's how that'll go over.
Magic CEO Alex Martin said the NBA is determined to resume play and is willing to wait until September to complete the season. Kravitz, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, at least it sounds like some sort of plan. I'm waiting to hear from, I mean, that's great that Alex Martin says that. I'd love to hear that from, I don't know, the commissioner of the NBA. It just seems like everybody's splintered off in the league and kind of doing their own thing. They were like, well, we're going to open up practice facilities. And the Hawks are like, no, we're not. And the NBA is like, yeah, no, never mind. We changed our mind. You've got Steve Kerr saying, yeah, we're closing up shop. And LeBron says, we're going full force. Everybody's got their own idea in mind. I need the commissioner to be that guiding force. I need definitive answers. Honestly, right now, Zach, Roger Goodell is lapping Adam Silver, which rarely happens.
Yeah, I think more than anything, we're just trying to gauge what's realistic. Nobody's taking any of these plans or theories for any of the sports to heart. But for him to say that and basically say we're open to playing that late into the year, it just gives you an idea of where at least one of the teams is at, a playoff team, mind you, and maybe a playoff team. Let me pump the brakes there.
No, they're getting in the playoffs as long as they still let 8 in. But no, yeah. I mean, yeah, okay. So the Magic are cool with playing, but the Magic are going to play until September. The Bucks will play until mid-August. Can we all get on the same page here? That's all I ask.
We're just getting there. We're working our way there, one thing at a time. We're narrowing the gap. It's like negotiating. You start high, I start low, we meet in the middle.
I like Alex Martins. He should not be the one making these announcements.
Moving over to the NFL, Tampa Bay Bucks here, Zach. What is the best movie with pirates in it?
That's easy.
Didn't the Muppets do like a Treasure Island?
Doesn't it not matter because it's Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah, it's easily Pirates of the Caribbean. Easily.
Is it?
Easily.
What about Treasure Planet with space pirates? You guys don't even know. Just throwing out the easy answers. Easy.
Sometimes easiest is the best choice. Thank you.
Is there even another option? It's Pirates 1, Pirates 2, Pirates 3.
Whoa, pump the brakes. Curse of the Black Pearl, great. Second one was Third one was awful. Fourth one tied a nice bow on it all, but still, eh.
Yeah, no.
I can't even think of any other pirate movies.
I just named one, Muppets, Treasure Island.
Moving on. The theme of the show today has been Tua picking his jersey number. Kravitz, one word to describe Tua's picking his number 1 jersey.
Lonely. Because 1 is the loneliest number that we've ever known.
Right now. I hate you so much.
Why? Because I stole your answer? Because I stole your awesome answer?
What is that?
Loneliness.
I don't even know. How do I top that?
You can't. It was too good. Moving on.
Is Gardner Minshew's ceiling in the NFL higher now than Blake Bortles was after his rookie season, Zach?
No.
You know what? I'm going to say no, because Blake obviously drafted a lot higher. You were putting a better team around him. Not maybe heading into year 2, but you were starting to feel good about the weapons, good about the direction. But do I think that if you ask me this question same time next year, it might be a different answer? I do.
Yeah. Hell no. Not even close.
Bro,
Blake Bortles'
pump the
ceiling was
brakes.
way higher.
Stop being a homer.
I'm not being a homer. This is the reality of it.
Being a
His
homer.
ceiling was higher. Their floors are somewhere in the crest of or the mantle of the earth. Anyway.
All right, we'll get to this one really quick. Blake Snell said he grew up watching A-Rod as his hero, and when he first faced him, he struck him out. Zach, what one MLB batter would you strike out if you could choose?
Bregman, and I'd let the ball slip. I wouldn't strike him out.
That's funny. I was going to say Carlos Correa, but I had to actually try and strike him out and go, there you go. Or like Altuve.
Is there a trash can? Do you guys hear that? Is there trash cans in the background?
Yeah.
What is that?
There'd be such easy trash
Oh,
talk.
there it is.
Everybody wants to hit them with the ball. I would strike
Damn
them out
right.
right down the middle and go there. See, when you don't know what's coming, it's
Well,
hard to
good.
hit the sauce.
When I get thrown out, you can take over and strike out the next guy.
I call my pitches Alfredo, got so much sauce in them. Moving on. I think
That's
that
how
covers
we're
it.
ending it.
That
That's
covers
great.
it for today. You guys are really number one. Thanks for spending some time with us. He's Zach. I'm Brandon. Shout out to our producer, the master of master control, Chris Vasquez. We're back tomorrow at 5 p.m. covering all the biggest stories inside the state of Florida. Find the podcast now available on iHeartRadio. Just search Sunshine State Showdown. Hit that download button and listen away. Good night, Florida. Stay safe out there.